On Monday, July 1st, our first order of business is the call to order, which we just did, and next is roll call. Please take the roll, Emma.
Margie Davy,
Here.
Lisa Marone, Jacob Claymeyer,
Here.
Alyssa Ranke,
Here.
Vic Oliver,
Here.
Brad Spanbauer,
Present.
Joe Stevenson. 5 present, we have quorum.
Great, thank you. I see that we can probably forego public comment since we have no public tonight. It's always a clue. Approval of minutes from June 3rd. Would anyone care to make a motion?
Motion. Sorry.
Go for it.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, then, we can move right on to tree protection zones. And we're very fortunate tonight to have Travis Sturks with us from the Parks Department. He's our city forester, and he's our landscape operations manager, I see. Is that your perfect title?
Both.
Okay, you can
City
be
forester, both.
anything you want to be tonight, or all of them. Okay.
Sounds good.
So, please share.
I wasn't really informed on what I needed to, so I didn't have any formal presentation. I just
Okay.
was told that you wanted to discuss some tree protection stuff.
We do, and Joe had some questions, but I think that it's quite possible Jake has even more.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple general questions. One of them was just around the tree inventory. How do you track the trees that the public owns, and what is the current status of it? Like, how many trees do we have?
It's a little iffy through the whole Emerald Ash Borer thing. Some of the ash kind of got lost, or it's as I was going around town, I found ash that weren't in our inventory that needed to be taken down in the terraces. So roughly there's probably around 10,000 trees or so that we have somewhere in there. We did just apply for a grant to have an inventory done. One, to help us get a hold, or know what we have, and kind of see where we need some help, where we can go. Part of it is for an IRA grant through the DNR, so it has to help disadvantaged portions of the community, which Oshkosh had 55% was considered disadvantaged in some way, shape, or form or another. So we're hoping that we can get some of this funding to get the tree inventory up to date, and then we can go through and systematically pinpoint where we need to address our planting needs. And but then it'll also update our inventory.
Okay, just to clarify for me, did you say IRA funding?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was from the actual federal.
Great.
Government, so.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to be sure I got it right.
Yeah, I mean, one of our goals as the Sustainability Advisory Board that we have is just to increase the number of native plants in the local community, both public and private. So does that study also track, what types of trees and what sort of diversity of trees that we have?
Well, right. I mean, it's with the inventory you would go through and you'd figure out, one, your species, the size of the tree, the health of the tree, obviously where it's located, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and then we take all those numbers and divvy it out and figure out, okay, well, I mean, just off the top of my head, I know that Oshkosh has roughly 30% maple, which is, way too high. So I've not necessarily cut out maple, but I've cut them way back to where it's, out of all of our plantings, it's maybe 5% of the total that we plant. So out of 100 trees, 5 get planted.
Sure.
But so that will help to,
Yeah.
diversify and all those.
Are there other species that you're concentrating on getting more of? Or just diversifying?
Just kind of diversifying.
Yeah.
But we're using I've started using a lot of tulip trees, which are beautiful trees. Tulip trees, iron, musclewood, American hornbeams. We have a lot of hackberry and locust in the town, or in the city already. I still use a fair amount of Kentucky coffee tree. We've switched over to the seedless varieties, which is nice, but they're just, Kentucky coffee trees are just wonderful trees in general. But there again, we have quite a few of them in town, so I've been limiting the numbers on those.
Okay, go ahead.
I have a question. Yeah, so, and don't want to jump in. Are you looking at species that will be better adapted to our warming climate? Like, so like trees that might have generally a little bit more of a southern distribution, but might start to do better as we just warm up?
A little bit. I mean, that's not necessarily one of the specific goals or that I have, or like one of the specific criteria. A lot of it is more just riparian trees where they're very tolerant of drought and soil saturation, and they're able to withstand stress and the urban environment a lot better than some of the other species. So.
Okay. Are there any other questions on tree canopy?
Yeah, I guess like one of the things that we'd like to learn, or I'd like to learn from you, is like what sort of challenges you have like in increasing the diversity. Is it perhaps a funding problem to get more trees, or is there other threats to these trees that you're seeing? I guess what other challenges do you have in trying to increase that tree coverage in Oshkosh?
Okay, so as far as like the tree, thankfully we've been very fortunate. Last year, I was able to partner with the Oshkosh Community or Oshkosh Area Community Foundation to start up Taking Root 2. I don't know if any of you remember Taking Root 1, which was about 2010, somewhere in there, where we went through and they planted I think it was just over 1,000 trees in the terrace. We're not taking that big of a chunk where we raised enough to plant roughly, I want to say 1,000 trees, but we scaled it back. Last year we planted, with the Taking Root, was 225. Total last year we planted just shy of 400. But the reason we scaled it back a little bit is, one, so that we have a little bit of age diversity, so that all these trees aren't expiring at the same time and suddenly we have to go through, kind of like with ash, and take them all out at the same time. Two, it also just gives a little bit more texture and depth to the streets as you're driving down, where you don't have all one same height, same kind, same color of tree. So in that aspect, we've been very fortunate. Some of the challenges that we face is with the nurseries, trying to find some of these varying species. That's not all the nurseries have them at the same time, and some of the nurseries only have ball and burlap, some which I'm trying to get away from because they're just clunky and they're very hard to work with. So one of the other ones is trying to, as bad as it sounds, trying to find residents that want trees in the terraces. More often than not, I can somewhat understand why, but we'll get people that don't want messy trees, or that don't want the trees to uplift their sidewalk panels, or one reason or another. They simply don't want trees in their terraces. So
Does that seem to be more in certain areas of the city, or is it pretty much?
No, it's pretty equally spread throughout.
And how do you find out if a resident wants a tree, or how would they let you know?
They call me.
Great.
Okay.
I was gonna ask what that process
Typically-
was.
Typically, it'll be, I've been lax on sending letters out as I've gotten better, but for the first couple of rounds, it was trying to handle all of the ash removals and then go back through and do the first round of planting through that. And so the letters kind of got skipped, and I didn't get a lot of the feedback from some of the residents that had ash in their terraces that didn't want them. And so I found out fairly quickly who wanted ash in their, or who wanted replacement trees and who didn't.
Okay, so the trees that you're offering to residents for their terrace, are those all replacement trees?
Not all of them. No, we also do an annual planting of just regular terraces. Like this year, we focused mainly on the Stevens Park neighborhood, which was nothing that had nothing to do with the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation or the Taking Root funds. That was simply just our usual DNR grant that we get. So. But there again, some of the other struggles too, like you were saying, to lead into that too, were the utilities, where both above ground and below ground, we've gotten away from planting big shade trees under power lines. So that limits us to, a handful of small to medium-sized species. So Japanese tree lilacs, so we see those all over town, which I'm starting to scale back on those just because there's way too many of them. But then I started replanting some of the service berries and like I was saying, the hornbeams or the musclewood, red buds. So I'm starting to play around with witch hazel a little bit, and put some of those in some of the terraces.
If we were going to make a Facebook post under Sustainable Oshkosh that said, residents, if you would like a tree in your terrace, contact Travis, would that be an okay thing?
Helpful or overwhelming?
Yeah,
A little
exactly.
bit of both. It would be nice to have a solid list of residents that actually want trees where I'm not going to get the pushback. And I can just be like, okay, this is what you want, as long as they're under the understanding that we still ultimately will have say in what species goes in the terrace.
But
'Cause
once
that's-
it's planted, they take over its care, right? Then water it.
I
and-
mean, for watering and stuff, yes,
Yeah.
but the city still maintains it. So we come back with the newer trees or the newly planted trees. We try and get back there within 2 years to do the first training pruning, and then usually it'll get hit with the next pruning within another 2 to 3 years on its normal cycle. So, but
Utilizing a form might be better than saying contact him.
That's what I was gonna say, was I wonder if we could just get a form that people can fill out, and if that's sent out to people.
and what I did last time with the ash replacements is I just had them email me and put ash replacement in the subject. That way it went right into a separate folder and I could just sit there and check those. So, I mean, something like that would work. A terrace tree planting or something in the subject line would probably be easier. That way I have all their written information right there. We don't have to worry about paper forms getting
I meant digital, like a
or-
Google form or something, so it would all collect in like an Excel sheet. But if that's not your
Alyssa,
forte-
you're going places that the city might not do. I'm just saying,
If-
we would have ways of doing things personally that maybe the city doesn't want to get involved with.
I'm sure they have some kind of digital form collection that they utilize though. Like how did they collect our information for May?
Okay, let's let that one lie there for a while, okay? And go on to other questions. I'm wondering if you could kind of give Travis an overview of our whole concept about the tree construction zones and what our questions were with that.
Yeah, did you have more questions about that, or do you have other questions?
Yeah, I had a couple other.
Okay, yeah,
Stuff on
keep
Canopy.
going.
Keep going for that then, yeah.
We're good.
I'm trying to think though. I just had an idea, like while you're talking about some of the, say, like, was it the Japanese lilac?
Tree lilacs, yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's a non-native species that I don't think is regarded as like invasive. I don't see those like sprouting out in different areas. But you know, if we're spending the tax dollars on trees, do you think there would be any issues with mandating like only native species for those public trees, or is there a reason that we have other
I think you
types?
kind of tie your hands if you do that. I mean, if you say only native species, that limits you to a small select group of species. Where this way we can always work towards using a lot of the native species, but then we're not tied to it. I mean, it's always in the back of my head. It's not like I'm going out trying to find.
You're not
invasive
planting palm
species.
trees?
Right, you know. I mean, it's just best management practices to use native. I mean, it's kind of unwritten.
Right.
But, so I'm not saying that it's a horrible idea. I just don't think that actually mandating it is the right way to go.
Okay. You also mentioned earlier that you're using like a seedless variety of the Kentucky coffee tree. I know that those seeds themselves are edible, and some people utilize them for, you know, a coffee substitute if you roast them. But you also mentioned that some people don't like the messy type trees. Has there been any consideration for the types of trees that provide food for people and animals, or is it more about, I guess, what sort of like objectives do you have when you're selecting a tree, and is that considered?
No, most definitely. Typically, when I'm speaking about species selection and everything, I'm mainly referring to the terraces. So we're talking anywhere from, I mean, we only plant in anything that's 4 feet wide, so 4 foot to, you know, like some of our terraces are 10, 15, which is amazing. But so you're also talking about trees that are right next to the streets. So for one, I don't necessarily want people picking apples right next to, you know, right on the curb. For two, it's also a lot of litter that would be going into our storm sewers and water retention. We already have enough crab apples throughout the town that, you know, do that for us. That's kind of where we go with the seedless Kentucky coffees. Is we don't want, you know, all the seeds going into the storm sewers, causing problems, plugging up the storm sewers and what have you. You know, it's the trees provide the wonderful benefit of sucking up and helping with a lot of the storm water. I don't want all the seed and the fruit and everything to then negate that by going through and plugging up all the pipes. So, I mean, I hope that kind of answers.
Yeah, that gives me some idea of what's
Now,
going on. Yeah.
I mean, in an actual park setting, it's completely different because, yeah, we don't have, you know, it's not next to the roadway. With the park setting, it's slightly different, but then you also have turf maintenance, you know, so you have all the mowers and stuff. You know, granted, you don't necessarily want mowers running over apples, and, you know, those coffee bean husks they're not great.
Sure.
They're not real hard, but they're not the best for your mowers.
I'd say that's a great opportunity to create, you know, a non-mowed area, right? Not necessarily saying that we should be planting species that don't benefit the native species as well as like the people around the parks, right? Everybody loves to pick an apple off a tree, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. I think the other questions are more related to the tree protection zones, so
Yeah,
you probably
we wanna-
want to.
Okay, why don't you just give Travis a bit of an overview first then, so that he knows where we're coming from. We had been discussing this for a while, so.
Sure.
Do you want me to do it?
Yeah.
Go for it, yeah.
Yeah, there's Brad and the college students at UWO do these great like little mini projects on different recommendations to the Sustainability Advisory Board. And one of those that's published on the Sustainability Oshkosh website is tree protection zones. It's a type of ordinance that mandates a type of protection for trees during construction or during road maintenance or a whole bunch of different activities that other cities have implemented. And so they were suggesting that we update our code to have some of those tree protection methods. And they gave a couple different examples of what that could look like.
Sure.
And that's it. kind of the example that they gave as a potential problem that they were trying to solve was on the development off 41. Which exit was it? Is like 116 maybe on the north?
No, it's on the 21 on the 2141 exit where there was a bank that was recently built.
Oh, yes.
And there were all the mature oaks there.
Right.
One thing I think
Sure.
that was discussed was that, on property that is owned, not owned by the city. I mean,
Private
it seemed like,
property.
there may be, less to do there. But I think the ultimate goal being, if there's established trees in places, doing, I think, as much as we can to preserve those versus just totally clear cut and start over.
And I definitely agree. There are definitely some pros and cons to both sides. With, say, because we just went through this with Wagyu Ave. They're doing street reconstruction on Wagyu. I sat and talked to the engineers, went and walked the street with them. We went through and, first of all, we went and looked at which trees actually should be saved, because, like it or not every tree should have the time and the money and the effort put forward to have it saved. And so after that, I think there was about 60 trees on the street. After that, we came to the conclusion that there's probably about 20 or so that actually were worth saving and investing in. So we went through, and of those, then they went through and marked and looked at where all the laterals and all the other underground utilities were. And with that being an older section of town, there was underground utilities like every 10 feet. So, it basically negated any sort of, trying to figure out what would be good and what would be not. Unfortunately, at the end of all this, the contractor came through and cut all of them down anyway, except for one. There is one left standing.
And why did that happen?
I'm not sure if it was a misunderstanding or a mismarking or what happened there, but we had just gone through and walked with them, and so.
So you did your part, but it failed after that, is what you're
Right,
saying,
and
right?
engineering, I think,
Yeah.
did their part. I want to say it was just a miscommunication or a misunderstanding on the.
And to be clear, is this on this, where they're redoing the street itself, or is this in the section where they're going to be replacing the school with a set of houses?
No, this is on Wagyu. It
Okay.
would be right on the actual street proper.
Okay,
But
thank
So those
you.
were terrace trees.
they were terrace trees, yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay, well, that's unfortunate. We can't put them back.
no, and this is one of those things where it's not that I'm glad that it happened, but at the same time, if it were to happen anywhere, that street was probably about the best street that it could happen on, just because the trees really weren't overly spectacular. Like it wasn't, they weren't prize specimens. So,
In those ordinances that kind of control what people can and can't do with the public trees, it states in there, they need your approval to maintain or cut down any trees. And then there's also like potential penalties for that. Are you going to be approaching some of those penalties? As in, I think it says that you need to replace it with a tree of equal or larger caliber.
and most of those are already built into the street reconstruction project. So yeah, they will all be replaced,
Okay.
or at least the vast majority of them, I believe.
Well, they'll be replaced with something, but it won't be a,
Right, I mean,
same
obviously, it's
size
not
or
gonna be
canopy.
A one-for-one, they're not gonna drop another 14-inch tree in there.
Well, I think it also has, because you can't replace a large tree, right? It has to be like equal to the total size, right? So you'd have to plant more trees to equal that original size. And I guess that's kind of like what I'm trying to get a feel for too is in the ordinance, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of different things that can happen. And it's like, one, how do we even track if somebody has damaged a public tree? And I think that goes along with, our public tree inventory. Having a better, that update will help a lot, right? But then also, what are the disincentives for people to maintain those public trees and that value that it offers the public, right? Is kind of the question that, it just seems like in this exact scenario, we've lost some trees and the public is now, just more sun exposure on that road. Those people that live there are going to be potentially hotter, running their ACs more, incurring more costs. And, that was a private company that went through and did that, right? The contractors made the mistake. So any way that our board can help inform the public, or, that's the kind of feedback we're hoping to get from you, is like, how can we help replace that shade, essentially?
So,
If you don't have answers now, we understand.
No, it's definitely a good question, and I think where the better thing that we could do for the trees is maybe it wouldn't necessarily be that they'd have to replant more of them. What I've find all throughout the whole city is our terrace soil is garbage. And so what we really need to do is start to replenish the soil. If they're doing street reconstruction, anywhere that's a good planting site, they should start to have it where you rip, the 20 feet or 20-foot radius or 20-foot length, or 10 feet on each side of the tree. Take that out and make sure that that gets at least a foot of good, solid black dirt, as opposed to clay for the first, up to 6 inches below grade, and then they top dress it with some black dirt, seed it, and call it good. So that would, help basically everything, because then you're giving the roots a place to grow. You're not going to get all the surface roots. They're not going to go and crawl and reach and try and grow under the sidewalk panels and work for everything else, because they have a perfect environment to grow in that 20 feet of soil.
That's interesting, and that's the first time I'd heard that. I know that Oshkosh is built on clay. Anything we ask about, we find out there's clay. Can't do that. But, so that's good news. Thank you. Good to share.
Also, add probably the regular mowing and bagging all those grass clippings is probably degrading the soil, right? You're pulling out the carbon content and stripping that soil. So if there's other ways that we can have a lower maintenance method of maintaining these terraces while building the soil, I feel like that would be a win-win. And it makes me think, where do you even get compost in the city? I think we have the municipal services, right? Is that self-available to you? The municipal yard waste?
We have enough, yeah. We produce enough yard waste and such, that we use our own chips and stuff. We don't necessarily compost or make compost tea or anything like that yet, but.
Okay. And the university doesn't have compost anymore, right? Kind of thought that went away.
I guess one of the questions I would have too is they recommended this tree protection zone where in the drip line of any tree, they need to pay for materials to block it off. And ordinance pretty much states, what a simple, tree protection zone would look like. It's traffic cones with ribbon around it, right? Just so it's properly marked. Nobody would ever interfere with it or accidentally, bump into it with an excavator or something like that. Do you think that would have helped this situation on Wagoo, or do you think there's other methods?
It might have been a good start. I think we all know that cones and caution tape, or even stakes and snow fence, really don't mean anything. Stakes and snow fence are easily pulled up and moved, and what you need actual, if you're going to do it, you would need actual cyclone fencing, so that it makes it difficult to get into it.
That's just nuts, isn't it?
Yeah. but and with it being on the street and street reconstruction, which is really what we're going after here, it would be tough. I mean, because there's a lot of other things that are working in. There's, you need so many feet excavated to put curbs in. You need so many feet for, you're trenching in your water lines and your sewer lines and everything else that's going in. So trying to have that hard fence is really going to just create a lot of extra time and effort, and I'm not saying that it wouldn't be feasible, but like I said, I think at least for the road construction, if we almost even flipped over and started focusing more on the soil and going through and doing the replanting right, so that they're all placed in the right area, so that they are 10 feet away from all the underground utilities. They have the nice soil that they're able to grow in. And then we work with a decent stock and some of the right trees. We can regrow the canopy in just about as much time and effort. Well, maybe not as much time, but with about as much effort as it would be to try and save that other tree.
Okay.
Now, if you're talking about like in parks and that sort of thing, I completely agree, or completely think that trying to get the hard fences and actually do the full-out tree protection would be much better, because there you have the space, and depending on what the project is, I think it'd be much easier and worth the effort to save some of the bigger trees, because especially in the parks you have some of those monster oaks and what have you that are well worth trying to save and put forth the effort.
Did we lose any trees in Menominee Park during the archaeological study?
Not from that. I did notice that there are a few dead oaks along the lake shore, but it's far enough away that I don't think it would have been from any of the road repaving or the archaeology.
Okay,
So.
that's good. Not that they're dead, but that they didn't lose any. So, anything else you've got, Jake?
No, I think that answers it. Yeah, thanks for going into so much detail about your work and everything, and appreciate all the efforts you have.
Yeah.
Like, it's important stuff, and I think it's a good resolution to the college study. That's really what we want to drive to, is make sure that these students that put in the work, have a clear answer. And I think the feedback that you gave was, for the road reconstruction, it may not be feasible to do a reconstruction zone, but maybe looking at the ordinance or code to see if there's opportunities to improve the soil in those sorts of projects would be nice. And then maybe in the parks or say a certain size of tree, it might be worth putting in more stringent tree protection zones. So, thanks so
Absolutely.
much.
Do you have anything?
No.
Alyssa? Vic?
Just want to clarify then, so is it okay then to put on social media to send you an email? Is that what you want to go for with tree protection zone, or sorry, terrace tree planting in the subject line? Just
Yeah.
want to set that up for success. Okay.
Yeah.
I will get that out there.
We like to ask first, really.
No,
I don't want to overwhelm you. I want to make sure it's a positive situation.
just so that they're in the understanding that we do have limited funding.
Absolutely.
And so it will be on a list,
Mhm.
and so yes, I can't guarantee when that tree will be placed in their terrace,
All good.
but
But they will be contacted at some point and asked if,
Yeah.
who knows if they'll even still live there by then, right? So,
well, let's hope it's a little
That's the
sooner
other
than
part,
that. But
there's a lot of movement going on now. I guess I did have a couple of questions too. When you were talking about the Taking Root program through the Community Foundation, and so what they do is provide the funding for the trees, right? And your department takes care of everything else?
correct, yeah. It's
Okay.
we went through and I helped them with a fundraising campaign last winter, and so
Okay.
we raised. I think with that one, it was just over 300,000 to replace the lost terrace ash. So
Okay. And are there any organizations that you've worked with, like Rotary Clubs or Kiwanis or anything like that?
As far as, it's through
As,
that
as
whole
far as
fundraising,
getting,
that's-
yeah, were they
We're-
participatory in
Yep,
that?
Yes.
Okay. And what was my other question about it? Oh, no, I was just curious, how large is your staff? I mean, I'm pretty sure you're not planting all these trees by yourself.
No, this year we did. This year so
No,
far.
I mean by you yourself. You've got people helping you, right?
No, not, yes. Of course. No, I have a wonderful staff. I have 3 arborists, 2 horticulturalists, and a couple of landscape specialists. But so the arborists mainly take care of the tree planting. So this year they put in, it's about 150-ish trees of various styles. So they did, I was able to get like a third of it was bare root, some of it, a third of it was container, and about a third of it was bulb and burlap. But
And do you accept volunteer help for anything like that, or is that too dangerous?
I'm very particular about my tree planting as far as depths and all. So it hasn't gotten there. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I just haven't gotten it set up and figured out to.
It would require volunteer training, right?
Yes.
Yes, got it. Okay. Anybody else have anything? Thank you so much for coming in. There's a lot we don't understand about the trees, and I know, like, a long time ago, like 10 years ago maybe, we had actually written a tree terrace resolution based on what sustainability would say for that.
Sure.
And then James Robbie came in and explained to us that all the things that go underground right there was a good reason why we couldn't be planting trees the way we were asking for. So it was helping us understand how the city actually operates so that we could be more helpful then. So, and then we put it on pause until the students came back for it and until you got here.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much.
Yeah, not a problem.
Thank you.
And we can just reach out to you anytime, right, with any kind of question?
Absolutely.
Good. Like it.
Might not have an answer for you right away, but yes.
Doesn't have to be immediate. Okay then, well, let's move on. Native landscaping areas ordinance review is next. Is that you, Emma? Do I need to move a little to see what you're doing?
It's up to you. I know we talked about this a little bit last month in the workshop, so we just kind of wanted to clarify what the ordinance actually says about native plantings and how that process goes about. So I don't know if I just pulled up the ordinance, if you want to take a quick look at it, or
Do you I don't know who was on the board when we wrote this, when we worked with this. Vic, were you, Brad?
I think so. Did we update this when I first got here?
We've done so many things. Please don't ask me for a timeline.
It was from like 7 to 3 years ago. It was a long process that kept getting
Okay,
stalled.
okay.
And I think that Pat Hallquist was actually, she did most of this.
Yeah, yep. Okay.
And then from this, we created the
Oh, the
flyer
brochure.
that's available, yeah, the brochure that's available.
Yeah.
Apply for receivable.
And the big question, did you have a chance to ask Brandon if he had gotten in touch with the person who had initially got us rolling on this?
Yep, we actually went out, Brandon and I went to her property and we walked it with her, and we actually kind of found out her plans, I guess, aren't really considered these native landscaping areas just because she has a lot of trees. It's not, she has like one area dedicated to really like prairie native grasses and whatnot, but that's kind of coming down the road. They're doing it in phases, so
Yeah.
kind of told her just kind of keep us in the loop. I think she's going to make some updates to her plan and just make sure that that's okay, and then she's going to get that native landscaping designation for that one area that they have planned for the more prairie, I guess, style.
And according to the ordinance, what she'll do for that is give a drawing to the Parks Department for them to okay, basically?
Yep.
Do they have to okay it before she proceeds with anything, or is there a process there that was ever established?
So actually right here, so there's a approval and submission landscaping management plan. So the director of parks or designee will review it and ultimately approve just the species that they're looking to plant. So in this situation, this individual reached out to our department first, I think, just because she was the first submission that we got.
We didn't have this yet.
Yeah,
when
just
she
to
first
kind of get
started.
some feedback, and she needed some assistance with, what do I do next? So we kind of just sat down, bounced around her ideas, and then, like I said, we actually went on site now. So the next step will be once she submits this to send it over to parks. So
Okay. Were you aware of this? Did you know we had this in there? Good. And have you had any other submissions based on that?
I've had 0 submissions.
Okay.
have
I
seen
suspect nobody knows it's there, so.
Can you scroll a little bit further?
Yeah, I was gonna say, can it, yeah.
Can you see okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think one of the issues I remember that applicant had raised was the 3-year growing season. She had received some feedback, or she gave some feedback that that's really tough to do, to completely switch to native species and essentially eradicate, the non-native grasses in the planting area in that time frame. And they said the feedback the city then gave, according to her, was that they're like, okay, that's okay, we'll give an extension in that case. But I'm curious if anybody remembers why that 3 growing season requirement is there.
I don't know. That's a very good point. I just read it. Yeah, the estimated transition period, which shall not be longer than 3 growing.
Season.
See, it's also grammatically incorrect. So
What is that? I guess I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
So to transition from what you currently have to full natives is supposed to take no longer than 3 summers,
Okay.
which I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know why we put a we have questions about 5. I don't know why we even put a time limit on it, to be completely honest with you.
And
Why does it matter?
And just help me remember, because I know we discussed this last time. So, let's say I own a property, and I want, and around my house there are like already established landscaping beds, right, that have some shrubs and stuff in them, but I want to add native plants to those. Does that fall under this? Policy?
I don't believe it does, as I recall, because you'd already have the bed created. Are you
Okay.
putting your native plants in the bed
Yeah.
or in the lawn?
Yep, in the bed.
Okay, if you put them in the bed, I think that
Okay.
it doesn't matter. I think if you try to replace your lawn with it, that's when it,
So what this is really talking about is like a total yard lawn removal and switching to native. That's what this is referring to.
as I
Yeah.
understand it, this refers to anything that doesn't
Any
have a,
native landscaping area.
bricks or something around it. You could do your whole lawn this way if you put bricks around the perimeter. Is that how you
Is that
understand it,
actually I don't know.
people?
This is
I
why I'm
need to-
asking.
I
Yeah,
need to
this is
reread
why I
it,
guess I'm
'cause-
trying to.
Could you scroll up to just the beginning? I think this is the plan portion, but then the definition is here.
The desirability of permitting natural vegetation within city limits.
It just says if a proposed.
In a managed landscape design on private property.
Yeah.
This is not helpful.
If a proposed landscape within the city includes native
Not
grasses
you.
that exceed or are expected to exceed 8 inches of overall height, the property owner must apply for and receive approval of the native landscaping area. So if I've got, let's say there's like a corner of my yard, right, on the front lawn is just all like turf. And I want to just like put like a rock border around it, and then everything in the middle would just be like native plants. Does that fall under this? Like I would have to have that approved before I could do it, or because it's a defined bed, it doesn't fall into this category and I don't have to have it approved?
That's a good question.
I think the issue arises when somebody has plants that are over 8 inches and there's a neighbor that reports them, or through the no mow May inspections, they notice that they have quote unquote weeds in their yard as defined by this ordinance. Anything over 8 inches is defined as a weed, regardless of its species. So this would be an opportunity to be exempt from that 8-inch requirement in, I think, any type of area.
Yeah.
But if I think that issue that I'm talking about, where a neighbor or the city is inspecting it and they see that there's overgrown vegetation, I think if you had it, say, managed, contained, or it looked intentional rather than just throughout the entire yard, I think that would be okay, because that's kind of that's the thing, the ambiguity in the ordinance. It leaves us guessing on what it could be.
Well, if we don't know, how does anybody else who's trying to read it?
Great
But
question.
that, I know initially it was stated that because now, before this, you could have a bed and you could put 20-foot, I don't know what grows that tall, sunflowers or something in there, and it doesn't matter.
Okay.
But if you want to have that outside of a bed, just in,
It does matter.
then it does matter, because then you're subject to the 8-inch rule of making sure that it's shorter than that. Which personally, I think it's kind of ridiculous anyway, but that's just me.
Yeah, I guess to me it feels like B also needs some clarification. One could describe their, if they had landscaping beds with perennial plants in them that happen to be majority native plants, but the bed is edged or it has rocks or some sort of trenched border, right, or something. You could call that a maintained prairie or meadow. I guess, maybe your meadow is this big or your meadow is 20 feet by 20 feet. But it seems like this is not clear, and it's adding more ambiguity and not providing any clarity.
Nor does it state anywhere that it needs to be bordered.
Right, I guess that's the part I don't.
Like a prairie doesn't have a border.
This is the thing for when you don't have a border.
Right,
But it doesn't say that.
It doesn't
is
say
what
that.
I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't
Okay.
call that out, though.
Right.
And so I think that's also
issue.
confusing.
Yeah.
Like,
I
this
think-
doesn't, it says nothing, like, there's nothing about a border anywhere in here. So you would have no idea if you were Joe Schmo on the street.
Right. If you're someone who wants to just go through and kill all your grass and replace it with all native seed, that feels like you need to follow these rules.
Agreed.
But again, that's not very
What this
clear.
says.
That's not what it says.
That's not what it not says.
So
So
language and clarity needs to be.
you're suggesting maybe we ask for this to be revised so it states this is the border. If you have a border, this rule applies.
Yeah.
Otherwise, see this,
Right.
these rules.
Right. This needs some clarity. Because right now, what this feels like to me is if I were a homeowner and I have an area of lawn and I wanted to just put in a new planting bed that has perennial plants in it, if I happen to plant native plants, it feels like to me I would have to go through this process even if it was like a perfectly managed thing, which feels like, how would that be any different than
Putting all my invasives in a border.
every other homeowner out there who has perennial beds that they plant plants in? How is it any different?
Very good point.
Yeah, no, it's like,
So, to me, this maybe just needs
I feel like,
a workshop and some edits.
A and B really just need to kind of be. And then I still don't understand the purpose of 5.
Yeah, 5 to me needs.
A transition
Why 3
period.
years?
So we'll put this on for next month or the next month to take
To
another
discuss a
look
little
at it.
bit.
Can we just make it a workshop so we can?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Speak.
So we can hash it out.
Yes.
What is this called?
Native Landscaping Areas Ordinance.
It's chapter 1744.2.2, whatever.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on this from anyone?
I think that was plenty.
Okay, let's move on to NOMO May staff update. That would be you, Emma.
So, I don't have any like formal report, just because it's our busy season, but I did get some numbers that I can share. So it looks like, so once snow mowing wrapped up, where do I have this? There was during the month of May, there was initially 31 long grass complaints, but those happened to be registered participants, so perfect. That was good, but then once June hit, there were 5 complaints that were participants. One of those happened to not be in violation once the inspector went out, and then only one property it looked like had to be cut by the streets department. So of, I guess, those 3 that received violation notices, corrected them in a timely manner. And then I did go through just the years that registration was required, so all the registered participants from 2022 to 2024. It looked like roughly 106 properties have done it all 3 years, so it's kind of cool to see. And then between 2023 and 2024, we had 123 properties through the last 2 years. So created like this huge master list, so I have everybody's emails now and contact information, so yeah.
And if we maybe, before we submit it next year, I know the suggestion's been made to maybe make it a low-mow May and explain what we mean by that instead of the no-mow May.
Agreed.
Okay, well, we can take another look at that later this year. We don't want to wait
Push it
till,
off, right.
Yeah, we want to make sure we get it done in time, plenty of time to promote for next year. Anything else on that? Till we get other numbers? Okay. Energy Innovation Grant update.
Yes, so I guess an update with the city's part. An RFQ has went out. It's been out for a couple of weeks now, but that has to stay open for 30 days. And then there was requirements of staff to fill out like some onboarding info, do stuff internally, and send it to the Office of Energy Innovation, and just before they can get that contract in place. So right now, from my understanding, it's kind of just waiting to hear back from the Office of Energy Innovation and just seeing, what the next steps will be. And then a reminder, WLGCC also was granted an application, with the city of Stevens Point being the lead, and they're kind of in the same boat. And it looks like, so in that situation, the agreement will be with Stevens Point, and then eventually we'll see what that means, being a member of WLGCC. And that looks like that one was, I know there was kind of some confusion when we announced what they were awarded, and that's for ICLEI greenhouse gas tracking. So hopefully we'll have some access to that. So yeah, so hopefully a bigger update this next month, because I think like mid-July they're hoping to get some information back to all the awardees. So hopefully August we'll have some more answers on next steps. So
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so it's a wait and see. Got it. Next up is City of Oshkosh American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA update. I could probably just give that one. Seeing as how I keep getting letters from the city manager, I've received 2 now that said that we were not included in the cut to spend the ARPA funds. I did reach out to a couple of council members, and I was informed that they were working very hard not to give these funds to other government entities, which we would fall under for this. So I guess we'll be submitting again for the budget.
I have an update. Last week, City Manager Roloff informed staff that yes, SAB was not awarded or recommended the ARPA funding, but he recognizes that there is still a need to complete an update to that sustainability plan, and he will find funding for this project to get done this year. So he has informed staff to proceed with the next steps. So we are actually, speaking of WLGCC, reached out to them last week, and hopefully they can help kind of with next steps with putting out an RFP. So we're just kind of trying to get the ball rolling in hopes that funding will be available as soon as possible.
Will magically appear.
Yeah, so
Interesting. So, if I understood you correctly, basically, you're at the point, you as in you, and not us, where you're looking for somebody who can give an estimate on what it will be to do this. And once we find somebody and know that that's who we want, then we wait for funding to magically appear.
well, we'll have to. So back up. Well, we're meeting. The plan is to meet internally. Finance is already aware that this is the plan, considering it is one of the city manager goals for this year. So we're just kind of moving forward in hopes that funding will be available. And then we'll have to go through the RFP process. We can't just pick someone that we want to do it. But the idea of it is to get this kind of rolling before the end of the year approaches.
Just like we would have done had we gotten ARPA funds and had to spend them by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that works for me. I don't care where the money comes from,
Right, different funding.
frankly. I just want it done because it needs done desperately. And another thing is that when at the last council meeting, the council also approved you might have to help me out. I call it the priorities plan, but that's not the right name for it. Where they had like 10 points that the city would be working on in the next year. And there was nothing in there that related to sustainability. So again, I reached out to a few council members, and what I was told was that because we don't have a director for sustainability, there is nobody to advocate for or manage the action plans so we'll never end up on there unless there's somebody to handle that.
We don't have a director of sustainability because we put it in the budget request and they denied it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So
This is something that happens every year, the priorities list.
when I read it, it looked to me like it happened every other year, but I think it maybe does happen every year, but it's a fiscal thing that doesn't match the calendar year.
Okay.
I made that assumption because there were 2 years dates on it, but that would happen if you went from July into next June, so.
Sure.
Do you know?
Are you talking like the strategic
Yes.
goals? Yes.
Thank you.
I believe that's every 2 years.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
I saw that too. I thought it was just kind of like a missed opportunity, not only to include sustainability, but seeming as though we need to update our plan. Like, is there a reason why the city's priorities or strategic alignment needs to be separate from a sustainability plan? I would think that a lot of those topics that were covered could be, thought as in a sustainable lens, and I think a lot of them are to that end, right? And if we have now some of those same goals in the Sustainability Advisory Board plan, it's a bit redundant. So maybe that's an opportunity to not have to do this request every 5 years, whatever our cadence is, and be part of the normal city strategic plan goals.
it would be nice to be recognized consistently by the city. Today, I spent several hours with somebody who lives in Appleton and is a member of some different committees there. And I found out that they are getting a sustainability director and are starting because they recognize how badly this needs done and how quickly it has to move. And I said, yeah, we've got 16 years on you and we haven't made any progress. And therein is my frustration. If we had taken advantage of, if we had been a stronger sustainability board 10 years ago even, and had gotten some of the things that we need now done then, just think where we could be. We could have been the leader in this whole area. And instead we just keep getting, well, next year. However, the other thing that she shared with me was, and she has been an elected official and, understands this all so much better than I do, I'm sure. But she said, with councils, it's really difficult because they have such a short tenure, basically. They may get reelected, but a 2 or 3 year time on the council, term, is it going to give them the incentive for something that takes 5 to 10 years for the fruits to come in, to be seen, so. But yes, we better make something this year, or let's just all quit.
Not gonna do that.
This is not the time to quit, no, as we all know. And that climate change thing, that's not an opinion, that's a fact.
Yeah, I think our community felt it certainly in the last couple weekends, record rainstorms and such, right?
And another 1.5 inches predicted for Friday.
Yeah, I think the trend is that we're going to see more of those types of events, and I think the more the city can do to prepare both the city-controlled things as well as the public for those events, the better off we'll be economically, the better off we'll be health-wise, and the better off we'll be in the future. So that's why we're all here, and I think it's not something anybody can quit on.
Well, and we have to make sure that we all understand that we're now transitioning from sustainability to resiliency, because we have to. It's gone too far now to just say, well, if we do this, that'll be fine. So anyway, I'm sorry, stepping off my soapbox, but I just get a little annoyed occasionally, as you probably knew. Okay, anything else on the ARPA? Okay. Summer Farmers Market, I'm very sad to report that on June 22nd, when we had planned to be at the Farmers Market, we did not go. It was a lousy, rainy day, and we did have only one person who was able to make it, as it turned out, and I said, well, I'll come with you, and then when we got the weather report, we didn't feel like 2 people could handle it for that day. Holding the tent down takes 1 person at least. But, so our next date that we have scheduled is July 13th. And that one, at the farmer's market, it's Christmas in July. That's their theme for the day. I do have down Joe, who we can't ask right now, Brad, Vic, and Lisa. But Lisa has already informed me that she cannot make it that day now. So that leaves Vic, Brad, both of whom I can ask now, and Joe. So, and me in a pinch, but I'm not going to be there at like crack of dawn.
I can still do it.
I'll roll in a little later, maybe.
Yes,
You're good?
I can be there, yep.
Okay, and Vic, you said you're good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I will reach out to Joe and double check on that. Because we did skip the one on June 22nd, I did have some other dates I wanted to run past you to see if there's a possibility that you would be available on any of these dates. It would be August 3rd is a possibility. August 24th is a possibility. Let's see, we're already planning to be there September 14th, and that's Dragon Boat, right?
Correct.
Which means it may have more people there, but it also means that we won't have Jake there. Because when I looked on the Dragon Boat site, you're like the head of the whole thing or something, it looked
I'm
like.
directing the races, so all the
yeah.
Dragon Boat races themselves, but there's a lot of other activities going on, the cultural performances, the Affinity Fair, which could be an opportunity for the Sustainability Board to attend, actually, if we're so interested in moving it. And then there's also food and dance and other things to go see there.
What I'm hearing is it's a good day to be at the Dragon Boat race.
Absolutely, yeah. It's going to be a good day on the water.
Okay, so then let's review this. We'd be looking at potentially August 3rd, August 24th, August 31st, which happens to be Labor Day weekend, September 7th, and I can go on, but I would like us to be there earlier in the summer, just so people get used to us, you know?
Was September 14th then the last date that we had, or did we have one in October? Did we
We-
not pick one in October?
We do, at this point, we had put down September 14th, but we don't have to stick with that. We can adjust that.
Okay.
Other dates that are available are September 28th, October 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th. So every Saturday in October.
Oh, wow, okay. So we originally had June 22nd, which got skipped,
Right.
July 13th, which is next Saturday, and then September 14th. We may add another. When would you need to
Or
know?
just-
When would you need to know about those August dates? Just ASAP?
Pretty much everything ASAP, but I would rather have it be firm.
Yeah.
What's going to happen is I have another organization I'll be booking into the same booth space.
Right.
And I don't want to get those volunteers committed when it's something that we want.
Right.
I'll just go around and.
I mean, I could
I could do August 24th.
I was gonna say, that one of any of them is probably the most realistic for me.
Same.
Okay.
Just thinking about.
Things you have to do this summer, Brad?
Yeah, like August 3rd, I think is gonna be too close to July. August 31st, if that's Labor Day weekend, that maybe might be
Yeah, that's not so
problematic.
good.
I mean, I can understand that problem is problematic for people.
Okay.
The 7th, I would say definitely for me is a no. That's opening weekend of university.
Oh, yeah, you might be a little busy. Okay, so that one. Okay, so I've got the 24th, August 24th as a potential replacement to June 22nd. Do we want to stick with September 14th, or do we want to adjust that to some other later in September or an October date?
Could we do September 28th?
We could do September 28th. Who else could make it that day, Jake? Vic?
We'll allow you to miss one.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we're not going to do September 14th because we all want to go watch the dragon boats and see how that director of them's doing. And,
That's what I heard.
but instead we'll go with September 28th. And Vic and Jake are for sure available that day. And Vic and Brad are for sure available on August 24th. And I assume Lisa will want to do this. I know she really wants to be there, so
Yeah.
I'll check with her and I'll check with Joe.
Yeah.
And we're sticking
Okay.
with July 13th, yes?
Yep.
Okay, just want to make sure. So we have 3 planned.
You, me,
Ju-
Joe.
Okay.
Yes,
I just know that I'm going
July
to all of them.
13th,
I'll just
yep.
show up.
Yeah, and then you can check with Emma on getting, she's got everything, right?
You
Sitting
got
in
all
her
the stuff,
office
like,
problem.
updated and ready to go?
Yep.
Oh, she does. She's even got fresh markers and crayons.
Wow.
Got the canopy figured out. Margie's tables.
Been there the whole time.
So if it's Christmas in July, we need to think of something
Christmas.
giveaway-y, but sustainable.
Well, we have those, we're going to do the light switch cover things.
Oh,
Light
for
switches.
kids. So like it's like a piece of paper essentially that they like decorate and color.
It's
so, like
pressure
remind them to like
sensitive.
turn the lights off.
Oh.
Which Christmas lights, I don't know.
yeah.
It actually kind of works.
Okay.
Energy
like it.
efficiency. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. I could buy some fair trade chocolate between now and then.
I could
Perfect.
get,
I'll happily donate that.
I'll
I could
probably
add
work
some
on it.
stamps that
Probably
have like, well, Christmassy stuff, but who's going to want to do that in July? Whoever does July anyway, you know? Only the stores, they all do Christmas in July. They were
Well,
doing
it's probably
Christmas in
already out.
freaking April, you know? Anyway, sorry. Okay, so we have a bit of a plan for that, and I will keep checking back with everybody to make sure we can maintain that plan.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay. And then next, agenda items for future meetings. We knew we were going to have tree protection zones to discuss. Summer farmers market, we'll just have an update next time. And what
The
was?
planting ordinance.
The planting, or, oh yes, the native
Workshop.
planting,
We want to
As
workshop
a
that.
workshop.
yes.
Update language and remove confusion.
planting workshop. Okay, do we want to try for a speaker for that? Anybody have any ideas on that?
I think if we have workshop, we will have plenty to discuss personally. I
Okay.
would suggest a speaker for September.
Okay. I did want to let you all know that on Thursday, July 18th, the Wisconsin Conservation voters are going to be having their biannual listening session. So I attended one of these, I think, 4 years ago, and it was really fantastic. I met a lot of people that I'd heard about but didn't know, and many of their goals are very similar to ours. So it's from 6:30 until 8, and it's going to be in the community room at the co-op. So if anybody's available on July 18th, they would love to have us attend. It was Jessica who came to speak to us, and she made a point of saying everybody's invited, all of us. What she didn't mention was if there was food or not. But it's at the co-op, it doesn't matter, you can always get food there. Okay then, anything else that anybody wants to put on future agendas? Okay, then next meeting will be Monday, August 5th, right here in this room if the elevator holds out. And I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.